ChatGPT is no longer just a chatbot, and Codex is no longer just for writing code. Together, they have become one of the most powerful systems available for getting real work done. I'm talking research, marketing, strategy, analysis, and even actual execution. The problem is that most people are still using them like it's 2024. They ask a question, they get an answer, and they close the tab. But OpenAI has now brought everything together around three distinct ways of working. We have chat, we have work, and we have Codex. Once you understand what each mode is built for, ChatGPT stops being something you occasionally consult and starts becoming part of how your work actually gets done. In this video, I'm going to show you the complete system, not prompt tricks, not toy demonstrations, real workflows for producing finished work faster. By the end, you will know exactly when you should use chat, when you should use work, and when you should use Codex, and how to combine all three to dramatically increase the output of you and your team. So with that being said, let's jump into it. So here we are inside the ChatGPT app. This was formerly known as the ChatGPT app, but there was a separate app called Codex. Now it's all been combined into one. And there are three different ways to work inside of this app. So there's chat, which is your typical ChatGPT. Not going to spend much time here because we've all used it at this point. It works the exact same way that ChatGPT works on the web, except it's on your computer, so it's great. We also have work, okay? Now work is essentially the cloud version of Codex. And if you want to switch to Codex, all you have to do is hit this left-hand panel, and then you jump over to Codex. And then you see the interface is slightly different. Technically, Codex is for builders, but I'm going to tell you right now, I spend 98% of my time in Codex. I'm not an engineer. I'm a marketer by trade, but this is where I do my work. So the difference in Codex and ChatGPT work, because this all gets a little confusing, and we know that if there's one weak point of OpenAI, it's their naming conventions. And so I don't want you to get confused about it. So in the most simple form, you can think about it like this. Codex is connected to your device and your local files. And that's very important for reasons we will discuss in this video and for reasons we've discussed in previous videos. ChatGPT work is essentially Codex, but in the cloud. So it can take autonomous actions, it can plug into other softwares and tools, it can send emails for you, it can send Slack messages for you, it can do a lot of different things, but for the most part, it's going to be in the cloud, or at least you can work on it through the cloud. You can also work on it through the computer if you're using your desktop. But if you're on the phone, for example, work will be done in the cloud, and OpenAI essentially gives you a cloud computer to actually do this autonomous work. Whereas Codex, once again, is actually running on your device. It's connected to your device. And for example, Obsidian is my second brain, which we will talk about. But if I want to ask Codex a question or have Codex execute something related to my business, my personal life, I mean, basically anything with me, it needs to be connected to Obsidian because I have Obsidian 24/7 recording all of my calls, all of my Slack messages, all of my emails, all of my life, and organizing it in there day after day. And so this adds a layer of essentially personality and memory that I couldn't get otherwise. But I have a pretty cool presentation to walk you guys through. So basically, this is what we're looking at. The product map has collapsed into one working system. So just like I was saying, ChatGPT is the chatbot. Codex app is for developers, but really is for you too. Atlas was an old product from ChatGPT that was their browser, but now Atlas has been canceled and has been rolled into Codex and ChatGPT work. So now the browser in the app is incredible as opposed to being a standalone browser. They just collapsed everything into one desktop app. So before, this is what it looked like. After July 9th, this is now what it looks like. Choosing the mode by the kind of work, you could probably guess this based on what we just talked about. But if you're doing quick questions or brainstorming, like a draft you might want to finish yourself, just go to chat. It's easy, it's quick, it's efficient, and it's a good product. But if you want to brief the team, if you want to have it planned, if you want to use connected tools, maybe you need to connect to Granola to understand your transcripts from your previous calls. Maybe you need to connect to Slack and Gmail or Outlook, and you want to return finished files from that research, work would be a great place to start, especially if you're using it remotely via the cloud. You can also do this exact same thing inside of Codex. And honestly, for any work-related task, I usually just do in Codex because I don't like to switch back and forth. I pretty much personally, my workflow is I use chat and Codex. If I'm remotely connected via my phone, sometimes I'll use work. But for the most part, you can get everything done via chat and Codex. Work is just like a nice addition. And I really think that they added that just because Codex seemed a little bit intimidating for non-engineers. What you'll see is that the ChatGPT app is very similar to the Claude app, because what you'll have is inside of Claude and inside of ChatGPT, there is a chat function. Same exact thing. Claude has what's called Cowork, which is essentially ChatGPT's version of work. And then there's Claude Code, which is basically the same thing as Codex. But here's the biggest difference in my opinion, is that Codex can do everything work can in the same way that Claude Code can do everything Cowork can. But the interface is just so much more smooth and easier, and you don't really have to think about it too much. I just find it a better user experience. That's my personal opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. Now, inside of Claude, inside of GPT, you have what's called skills. So any type of automation or workflow that you're performing over and over again, you can create a skill for that. We covered that in the last video going over Claude Cowork. So if you're interested in learning about skills, check out that last video with Claude Cowork. It breaks it down in detail. Now, memory. I was just talking about the memory function, right? Mine is connected to Obsidian. Well, inside of Obsidian, I have what's called an agents.md file. And this is like the master file for Codex, for ChatGPT work, whatever you want to call it. This is all of the instructions, essentially the system prompt, if you will. Every time I run a prompt through Codex, it goes into agents.md and it reads the instructions. Doesn't have to be super long, doesn't have to be super drawn out, but you do need some instructions there. The funny thing is, if you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different definitions of what a harness is. To me, it is the workflow that's built around an LLM. So the core LLM is GPT, the core LLM is Claude, and then they build this user experience around it, essentially. So basically, if you're working in enterprise, there's essentially 6 levels to this work that you could be doing inside of the GPT app. Like we said, there's chat, no need to elaborate on that. There's projects, and there used to be what's called custom GPTs, which is no longer relevant, but there are projects, which we will discuss. There's work, which we discuss. There's skills and agents. There's Codex, and then there's the harness, which is essentially the entire thing. So you can see this is almost like a shell, and the thing that contains around the entire shell is the harness. So what should you put inside of your agents.md file? Well, that's going to depend significantly on what your role is, what your organization's doing, and what your day-to-day looks like. But for most marketers, it's going to look something like this. You're going to want to have your brand voice. So inside of the agents.md file, you can have additional MD files, which is just a markdown file. If you're not familiar, it's essentially a document with no graphics. It's just text. It's essentially a text document. And inside of your agents.md, you can have text, and you can also have additional MD files. So maybe you have a brand voice that you need to adhere to anytime you're writing copy, anytime you're doing advertising, anytime you're putting together a campaign or campaign brief. And you want to make sure that that is referenced every single time you have output for your work. And so in agents.md, it would say, here's our brand voice, here's our brand, here's always reference how to use our brand before executing any task. Boom, it will link to the voice ID or maybe the visual identity.md. Maybe you have legal things that you need to be aware of. Same thing, you can add that in there. Maybe you're working in a specific region. That would also go in the agents.md file. You can add audiences, personas, campaigns, measurements, anything that is not going to change very much short term can likely go in the agents.md file. But for instance, let's say that it's November and you are planning a Christmas campaign. That wouldn't go in the agents.md file because that is more temporary. What would go in the agents file are basically permanent items. And yes, they could be changed and updated because businesses grow and evolve and adapt. But it should be more things that are permanent and not going to change day to day. Maybe they change quarter to quarter. More likely they change year to year. Ideally, they don't change at all because this is the brand, this is the business, this is the legal rules of the business, etc. Okay? Now let me just give you a visual example of how this agents.md file works. So as you know, Alephic works with enterprise marketing teams. And let me ask it, tell me what you know about Alephic as a business. Now, obviously, you could ask ChatGPT this question, and it would search the internet, it would go to Alephic's website, it would understand it. But watch what happens here. As you saw, I was connected to Obsidian, It's going to think about the request for a minute, and it's saying, I'll pull together what's in your vault first, then verify the current public picture so I can separate internal context from externally confirmed facts. So what it's doing is it's checking essentially our folders inside the wiki. And what it's going to do is it's going to search the internet and then bring both of these points together. So the vault contains a hybrid company, part enterprise AI consultancy, part custom software builder with training uses both delivery and top of funnel. I'm checking Alephic's own materials now to confirm how it presents the business publicly and which claims it is safe to make. And now it's checking the memory.md file, which is inside the agents.md file. And then it's going to check the internet. And then it's going to bring all of these together, and it's going to essentially give me output that combines my knowledge with the internet to find a single source of truth. So as you can see, it has now pulled a lot of information from the internet. It's tagged a lot of things about it that you can go view, my business read. And then at the very bottom, what it's going to say is where you stand with Alephic. And it's just basically combining the information that it has about myself with Alephic, and it brings it all together. So as you can see, this is a way that you can get information about not only what you have knowledge on, but the internet as well, and combine both of them. And this is very valuable when you're trying to do anything with marketing, because you have a lot of notes and rules and legalities and provinces and all these things that you have to keep in mind, but you also need to pull live information from the internet typically. And so this is the best way to combine both of those. And just to really double down on this point, once again, let's say that you have a note in your agents.md file about a campaign that you're running called Winner Escapes, okay? Well, basically, if you have constraints inside of there that, you can't talk about, or you don't want to touch, or there's regions you don't want to discuss, well, basically what will happen is this brain will catch the constraints before the copy actually exists. So if you went into regular ChatGPT and you said, hey, here's some information about Winner Escapes campaign, can you go ahead and make it? It will do it. And it might have some of this restricted information. But if you're in Codex or ChatGPT work and you're connected to your agents.md file and you have the Winner Escapes constraints in there and you ask it for copy, it will omit the things that should not be included in the output. So this is basically a way to make sure you don't have to, every time you're prompting something, come back and say, oh, I forgot we can't say this, or oh, I forgot we can't use this region. And it is a great way to essentially streamline your work to not have to do revision after revision after revision. And here's an example of what this would look like. So let's just say this is the first draft, right? Unbelievable winter deals are here. Best rates guaranteed. Book before they're gone. Well, there's an issue here because breathless hype violates a constraint that we had in our brand voice in MD. And this claim is prohibited. Best rates guaranteed. So this would be a note inside of that file. We cannot say that the best rates are guaranteed. And we also have notes about what the CTA should be, what it should say, how it should sound, and it's not learn more. So for example, this would be a draft that you get if you were just using regular GPT or regular Claude and it wasn't connected to your proprietary information. So I wanted to make this visual to show the difference in output before and after. So before, you have essentially low voice fidelity. You have claims that are not acceptable. Maybe the audience fit is okay, but it's not perfect because maybe it's talking about regions or locations that, we can't touch, or demographics that we can't touch. The CTA clarity is low. Ultimately, it's just not good quality. But after we connect it to our second brain, if you will, our agents file, our memory file, then the output improves significantly. And so hopefully you're seeing how this can avoid a lot of do-overs, because how many times have you gone to an LLM and you've asked it to do something and the output, you're just like, I can't even work with this, right? So this should get you a lot closer from prompt to output without all of the endless revisions in between. Now, there are 3 very important features inside of Codex, ChatGPT work, etc., that I want you to become familiar with. And the first one is browser. So I'm going to give you a similar example for each of these so you can see the differences in how it operates. Please go to Alephic's website and tell me who their ideal customer is. Please use @browser. So when you tag @browser inside of Codex, what it's going to do is it is essentially going to, you'll see it in just a second, it'll pull up a browser and it'll start clicking around and you can watch as it operates in the browser. Now, there are a couple features inside of Codex that you absolutely have to be using to the best of your ability. So the first one is the in-app browser. So let's do this. Please use you can tag at capabilities. And so when you go to plugins, there's a bunch of different plugins inside of Codex. You can also add even more. The top 3 that I use are browser, computer, and Chrome. And we'll go through each of these, but this process can apply to any plugin. And if you want to get more plugins, all you have to do is click this and you can see what you have installed. It's essentially a store. So you can install as many of these as you'd like. You can use as many of these as you'd like. And then all you have to do is tag it when you're doing it, just like this. Please use browser to go to YouTube and like Alephic's latest YouTube video. So let's see how it handles this request. So basically what I can do is anything that is inside the internet, I can ask it to just go do it for me. So for example, I had to send a LinkedIn message to someone the other day. I didn't want to do it. I was being lazy. And I said, can you use @browser to go into LinkedIn and send this message to this person saying X, Y, and Z? And it did it. Seamlessly. It's so flawless. And you'll see it in here in just a second. It's going to open up this browser. Okay, so you can see it is on YouTube. You see the mouse, the little cursor. It will literally move around by itself. It's searching for Alephic. Let's see if it's able to find it. And I just want you to extrapolate this example outward. I mean, imagine the power of this with what you're doing, whether you're researching sites, you're reaching out to people, any due diligence, like you can have the system essentially running on autopilot, and you can also take over this browser. So I could go in here and I could start typing and I could start clicking. Okay, boom, this is that's me. So for example, I just jumped in and I paused that video because I didn't want to listen to myself talk. So that's just an example. You can jump in and it's saying, hey, can you please sign into YouTube in the browser tab, then tell me when it's ready. So in order to actually execute this, I would just need to log into YouTube. It'll be logged in through my account and it'll be able to actually like this. You can't like something on YouTube unless you're actually connected to it. So here's what we can do instead. You know what? Can you actually use @Chrome for this? Because I'm already logged into YouTube using the Chrome browser. And so it says, you know what? Okay, I'll switch to Chrome now. I'll use your existing Chrome session that's already opened and reopen Alephic's latest video. By the way, I have to say, I already liked the video, so it probably won't be able to re-like it, but it's going to, let's just go ahead. So now we're in Chrome. Just for example. Let me pause that. So you can see the little cursor right there on the right side of the video that is able to operate inside of Chrome. It opened up the browser, it showed us, and then it comes back and it says, Chrome shows Alephic's latest video is already liked on your account, so I left it liked. Perfect. Well, the third thing that we could do is we could say, please use @computer to do anything, basically. So the same way that it took over my browser and the same way that it took over the in-app browser, we can have it use computer to go into my Apple Notes and leave a message saying Alephic is the best AI business for any enterprise marketing teams. Okay, I would correct that spelling, but it honestly doesn't matter. So now I'm asking it to go into an app that is inside of my computer, open it up, and add this. So right now it's reading the computer use skill, and it will proceed accordingly. So let's see what happens. So it says I am using computer use to create a new Apple Note with that message, correcting mismarketing to marketing. And you can't see this, but on my other window, I just saw the Apple Notes pop up. You can see in the right-hand side, that's the little computer view right here. And so what it's doing is it's just adding a new note here, creating a note, it's thinking about it, and in just a moment it will say, okay, that note was created and I added it, it's a new note. So let's give it just a moment. It's writing the Apple Note, it's thinking, and we should get feedback here in a second. So I just want you to think about the implications for this. Created. Alephic is the best AI business for any marketing team. Let's take a look. And boom, there we are. The note is created inside of Apple Notes. So just think about the possibilities with this, right? You can use the in-app browser, which is honestly probably the most efficient because it's literally inside the app. So it's very good. It's very quick. It's very fast. But Chrome is incredible and computer use is incredible. So I abuse these three features. I mean, I have them do stuff all of the time. And the more you use this, the more you will understand how to unlock even more use out of these three tools. And like I said, there's a lot of other plugins as well. I mean, we're talking spreadsheets, documents, PDFs. Sites is a very cool one. As a marketer, I got to show you guys sites. So let's say, please create a site using Alephic branding that shows the viewer of this video how they can use ChatGPT/Codex sites to maximize their marketing workflows. And we're going to let this run in the background while we continue. I probably could have made this prompt a lot better, but for the sake of this video, I just want to show you how simple it is to put something really nice together. So it says, I'm using sites to build and publish an Alephic branded companion site for the video, focus on practical ChatGPT Codex sites, marketing workflows. So we'll let that run for a minute. While that is running, I want to talk to you about scheduled automations, okay? So this is one of the coolest things inside of this whole tool in general, if you ask me. Now, I have 2 accounts. My other account has about 20 automations that run every single day. But basically what this is their scheduled task. So for my 7 a.m. daily operator brief, what I have it do is analyze the last 24 hours of calls, Slack messages, notes, emails, basically anywhere information may be. I have it go through all of that, synthesize it, and send me a Slack message with my top things to do, top priorities, anything that I've left unanswered, anything that's urgent, additional notes, and it's essentially my daily operating brief. And how cool is this? Because I don't have to go look through this every single day. And so in the same way, let's say that you are writing up a campaign or you're researching about just something related to marketing and it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving, and it's constantly moving. You could set up a scheduled task to basically analyze it every single hour. All you have to do is click create, and it's very, very simple. You literally just type in whatever it is that you want to do, and it will create the automation for it. They also have a lot of templates that you can do. That's pretty cool, as you can see here. So these are just some suggestions. They have a whole thing of templates that you can use that's really impressive. But basically what this will do is you set the cadence. It could run once an hour. It could run once a day. It could run once a week. It could run once every 10 minutes. I have an hourly cleanup audit, which basically just goes through my computer and makes sure that the compute is functioning properly and cleans up anything that is not, functioning the way that it should. And so, yeah, all you have to do is talk to it in plain language. It's really, really simple. So just as an example, let's just say Alephic is looking for new clients and new customers. Create a scheduled automation that constantly searches Indeed's website to find new chief AI officer job posts so that we can reach out to them and try to win their business. Probably could have been a little bit smoother there, but you get the point. So let's just see what it does. I create this. It's going to think about it for a minute. Usually what it does is it will come back with how it will go about doing this. So I'll set this up as a recurring lead monitoring task that looks for newly posted chief AI officer roles, deduplicates, prior finds, and returns outreach ready company leads. So it's basically going to automate and hand me. And I could have gone a step further. I could have said every hour, send the candidates to my inbox. Every morning, send me a Slack message. I could have added a lot more to the scheduled automation, but it's very easy to create these, I guess is the point. It really doesn't take a genius to figure out how to do this. You just natural language, type in what you want, boom, and let's give it a second to run and see what it comes back with. Okay, so created the Chief AI Officer Lead Monitor. It runs every 6 hours. It searches Indeed for the new Chief AI Officer. It does all this stuff basically. And then I can go back to my scheduled task. And what we're going to see is that in there, now I don't actually want this to run, so all I have to do is press delete. I could pause it, or I could run it right now, and you can see all the inputs in here. And I could also edit it to say, actually, can you have this send to my Slack or to my inbox or wherever I want it really. Okay. So we're going to delete that, but that's how you create a scheduled task. This is, if you're doing something more than once a day or really once a week, you may as well automate it because you don't need to do it. There's no reason for you to have to do these things over and over again. Now, how about creating skills? Because we talked about skills, but there's also a way to record a skill. So all you have to do here is record and replay. Let's ChatGPT record your actions on your Mac to create skills for more automated workflows. Basically, it records your screen, it learns the workflows, and it creates a skill for it. So maybe you have a certain way that you create SOPs for your team, but it's redundant and annoying to have to do over and over and over again. In this case, all you have to do is have it watch you create an SOP one time, and it will be able to create a skill based on that SOP. So therefore, you will be able to say, okay, we have the SOP skill, create an SOP about, sending company-wide emails, or, creating campaigns, creating briefs, whatever it is. And then all you have to do is just tell it what to do, tag the skill, and it will execute it because it watched you do the skill once. So if you're doing something more than once, A, you want to create skills for it. Like I said, watch the previous Claude video about skills. B, you want to be able to automate as much as possible because that's going to free you up to do much higher leverage opportunities. So the record a skill is really cool, but you can also just type it in natural language and just say make a skill out of this as well. Something that's quite confusing in ChatGPT are the reasoning levels. So there's a couple different models because in 5.6 they have Sol, Terra, and Luna. Sol is the most powerful model. It also uses the most credits and usage. And if you go to the sidebar and you click usage remaining, you'll see I have 56%. I also have a reset. That usage goes. So the more you use Sol, the quicker it goes, but also the higher the effort level, the more usage you use up as well. So the lighter models like Terra and Luna don't use near as much compute and usage, but they're also not as good. For me, I try to use Sol as much as possible, and I created a skill called Orchestration, which basically what this does, and you can create this right now inside of Codex. You just go in there and say, create an orchestration skill where Sol, at the highest effort level you want, directs Terra and Luna to execute on its behalf. So the orchestrator is the smart model, handing it out to the other models. So basically, you have everywhere from light to ultra, and you can also go down in models. But if you were to go to ChatGPT and you go to chat, it's a little bit different. So they have pro, they have extra high, they have medium, and they have instant. So the ChatGPT is slightly different than work and Codex. Same exact thing, ultra for all intents and purposes is essentially pro, but this is sort of a black box inside of OpenAI. They don't disclose too much about this. I have a theory that the pro level is the highest level of reasoning and thinking you can get, but in terms of execution, we basically rely on ultra, max, or extra high. A lot of people use medium and high for a lot of their tasks too. I mean, there's a lot of people that say you never need to use extra high or higher because it's a waste. I'm not sure I agree with that, but that's quite contentious. Checking in on our site here. So the site is taking shape. Your first version will appear when it's automatically ready. Oh, wow, just like that. So it looks like it's ready. And you can see right here, the browser is still open. So we can close this, we can close this, we can close this. Let's take a look at our site here. Stop chatting, start shipping marketing systems. The lesson from Cowork is not use a better chatbot. It is to give AI context, tools, and a persistent place to work. So it's basically combining all the things that we were just talking about with Alephic's branding, and it put together a website. So is this website perfect? No, I'm not going to spend too much time looking through it, but this is pretty cool. It even tagged the previous video that we created here. And so my point is that if you're trying to present something to your team, this is a great way to do it because you have all this collateral and all this information, and you can turn it into a beautiful website that can be used. And I can easily say, hey, this is not colorful enough, or hey, I don't like that we have this information here. It's even clickable, and you can navigate the different parts of the website. So tagging at sites is an incredible way to create a presentation that can be used so that you can just easily demonstrate your ideas. And whatever research you're doing, whatever concepts you have, this is a way to make it very presentable. To put a bow on this and really explain this in live action, Alephic works with a Fortune 500 company in hospitality. I had to omit some information here, but it gives you the idea. And so basically what Alephic has built and is building alongside them is the brand brain, and they've done this with Codex. And this is basically giving teams one place to use shared skills. Remember how I was talking about skills? What if your coworker is really good at making skills and you want to use some of them? Well, in this system, you're able to do that. You can have connected data, like I was talking about the second brain, but in this case, it is a universal second brain. So you can have all of the information necessary from within the company instead of just your own information. Local CLIs, if you want to plug into that and work with that inside the organization, and system harnesses. So basically, the whole point of this is that you don't have to rebuild context in every single task. If you recall when I was talking about the second brain, the beauty of it is I don't have to say every single time, hey, I do this, these are the restrictions, now go execute this task. It's just already done for it. I can just say, go execute this task. So as you can see, Alephic builds incredible brand brains with Codex. And inside these brand brains is everything from skills to apps to memory to governance to data, you name it. And so if you need this for your business and you want to take your team to the next level and you want to become more efficient at marketing, you want to get better results, and you want to empower your team, All you have to do is go to the Alephic website. It's just alephic.com. You click contact, get in touch. We'll reach out ASAP, discuss if it's a good fit or not. But ultimately, with Alephic, we can partner with you to make your business AI first, empower the people so that not only do they have the tools, but they have the knowledge to actually execute with these tools. And from there, the business becomes more efficient, the results get better, and everyone wins at the end of the day. So this is how you use ChatGPT, ChatGPT Work, and Codex all in one with your enterprise marketing teams. We have a lot of great content coming, so if you haven't yet, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Check out the previous video with Claude Cowork if you're interested in that, and stay tuned because if you are an enterprise marketer or you have an enterprise marketing team, we've got some stuff in the pipeline that you're definitely going to want to see. So I'm Sam from Alephic, and we will see you guys in the next video.